talk about Varian real quick. Varian, were you expecting him to be as popular as he was? Because I gotta tell you, I honestly, genuinely think like 90% of the fandom are there for Varian. Everyone's like, where's Varian? How come he's not here? I heard the voice actor was going to be there. Like, I like Varian too, but I wasn't never really crazy obsessed with this guy. What was the whole Varian shtick? I think I heard somewhere too that in the original concept art that I was talking to you about earlier with like Cassandra, she kind of like had a bow and arrow thing. Like she was actually Varian and Cassandra mixed together.
No.
Okay, so all right. So whoever told me that lied.
No, there was not a Varian or Zantiri or a lot of the big pieces of the mythology were not necessarily in place when we started actually producing the show.
Okay.
So the narrative itself really was about this friendship between Rapunzel and Cassandra.
Right.
It was about, we did have a lot of the Eugene and his father stuff in there. The Sundrop and Moonstone was very much a part of the original pitch. But Varian, he really became a character when we started writing the entire first season. I think when we did that piece of artwork, I don't think he was considered. But again, that artwork was very early.
Right.
But really to say that the bigger point is that the entire reason Varian was created was to push Rapunzel out of season 1.
Okay.
We needed a way to get Rapunzel to understand that she had more in her, right? We needed her to understand that there was more for her out into the world, and we needed a character to really mechanize her understanding of that. And again, that whole first season comes down to her grabbing those rocks, right? So that's where we needed to get. We needed to get from Rapunzel running from the rocks to her grasping onto them. The idea being that sometimes our future is scary. Sometimes, graduating high school and choosing a major and understanding what your destiny is going to become is super scary. And sometimes we run from those things, exactly like how Rapunzel was denying the magic, trying to hide her hair. When we recognize these large powers inside of us, some people embrace them, but sometimes it's scary to see that my life's not going to be the same from when I'm 16 to when I'm 25. Those are big times in people's lives. And so Varian just kind of became this basically a plot point to kind of get put into the mechanism to get her to understand that there is more in her.
Right.
Because she was denying it. So once he came into the position, she couldn't deny it anymore, and she had to grab those rocks. Okay, so then talking about whether or not we knew he was going to be, no, we just, hopefully you never want to create a character just so that they can be popular. You just create a truthful character that hopefully the performance and the writing and the design and the acting can all support. And hopefully we did that, again, we did that with Cassandra and with Lance as well. You're just creating characters as truthful as you can. I would say casting Jeremy Jordan was not a bad thing. People love him. I do too. And people always say, like, for whatever reason that I don't like Varian. I love Varian. Are you kidding me? Like, he's such a fun character. He was always, Jeremy understood the amount of fun and the amount of innocence that character brought to the narrative. And I absolutely love his portrayal of Varian, and his design was great. We just hit a lot of great strides with him in terms of what his character was, his relationship to his father, the alchemy part. His design is so cute. Like, it all just worked so great that the fans and the viewers just responded to that, and I absolutely love it. It's such a huge touchdown for all of the creative team on the show. But again, we're writing so far ahead of these things being aired that we had no clue that anybody would care about Varian going into season 2. That's why we didn't even consider him. One is because he was left behind and the characters were so out in front of the entire thing. And then number 2, it just wasn't, again, like as I keep saying, it wasn't important at that point to Rapunzel's arc until season 3, where she comes back and releases Kieran from the Amber, which again, like, she couldn't have done that unless she had gone out into season 2. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. So. Speaking of the Varian design, this is, I think, the number one big thing that drove everyone crazy. I think you might have heard it. You might know what I'm about to say, but Moonstone Varian. That was this is the number one big theory out there, all because of that little teal blue hair. You guys did something in that finale when they were in like the other realm, where I think it was Angry said, Varian, there's something going on with like your blue stripe. Oh, Moonstone Varian, is this it? Like, when it was like, did you guys do that on purpose?
We had a little bit of fun with the stripe just to kind of to make it the little snake version of Varian, but it was never meant to be anything more than just I hate to break to everybody because so many people, and I don't discourage any kind of fan fiction or writing about it.
You just depressed 90% of the fans.
Listen. Again, like, what happened on the show happened on the show.
Right,
so
right.
If you didn't do anything with it, it is what it is. But I absolutely embrace 100% the fun of the fan fiction, and in terms of coming up with theories behind it, who his mother is. Again, like, go crazy, like, write your own fun fan fiction. That, to me, it's inspiring. It's what I did as a kid with Star Wars and things that I loved as a kid. So use that to become a better writer for yourself and the things that you love. But at the end of the day, it was just he was an alchemist, and maybe he got a little bit of blue stuff on his hair and it stuck for a while, but beyond that. Oh
yeah, people were also wondering, like, where did the blue come from? Because I remember there was that episode when he was like a kid and he still had the blue stripe, and people were theorizing that, well, maybe it was just an experiment gone wrong. Or the other really crazy thing too, and I was actually like doing my theories about it too, is that since technically Kieran was there when the King Edmund tried to grab the Moonstone and it exploded, we did see like a spark of energy from the Moonstone. I was thinking maybe some of the Moonstone energy resided in Kieran, and then Varian was born from it. You see the kind of crazy things people come up with just that one little thing?
And it's not crazy. Listen, it's not crazy at all. These are all, like, we wove a very complex, very hopefully well thought out mythology. And so if people are extrapolating that storytelling into what they see in the show, I think it's very natural. I think it's awesome that people are reading into it and wanting more out of the characters that they respond to. And again, like, I absolutely encourage fan theories and writing. We, maybe someday, way into the future, we may see why that is. But as I always say, like, what happened on the show happened on the show. So if you didn't see that actually happen, then I can't necessarily speak to the necessarily truth of it.
And you said the blue thing was just mainly a design, just a design thing. Okay.
Shane Prigmore had done an initial version of Varian very early, and then had moved into another position at the studio. Ben Balistreri came on. We were up against like very major production deadlines that we needed a final Varian design and turn to be able to ship to meet production deadlines. And he just did this amazing design and we were looking at it, and it was, I keep saying it was later in the day. Like, we were in Ben's office and we were both standing up, kind of looking at this is what we always do, is like we stand up and we look at the at the computer and we're squinting and I'm zooming in on his head and his face and I'm looking at all the different versions of his, like the turn of his head, and we're making, decisions in a vacuum. Again, like nobody knows who Varian is. Like he's just one of another character that's going to be in the show. And I had seen the stripe, but I didn't think twice about it because it just seemed like a highlight. It seemed, at the end of the day, and I've said this in other interviews, but it's just this large black shape that is attached to his head, and Ben, being the amazing character designer and storyteller that he is, had just put in this shape to kind of break up this big black thing that was on this character's head.
Right.
And so I never looked at it as anything other than just like the way that the light was hitting his hair. We didn't really talk about it. I think he may have said something at the time about some kind of alchemy thing,
right.
science. I don't even know if he'd even said that, but maybe it was just in his head. But we didn't think twice about it. It just seemed fun. It seemed contemporary at the time to have this fun little stripe in this kid's hair, and but it didn't have any story significance ever. And when people started coming up with Moon Varian and the idea that he was part of this mythology, as fun as it was to read and be like, oh, that's such a great idea. That's such a fun, it's so fun to like see all the fan artwork. But in my heart, again, we were so far ahead of this narrative that it just never was a consideration for an actual piece of the mythology. I hope that makes sense, and I hope people aren't too upset about that. But it's just is what it is.
Yeah, no.
And again, and I would discourage anybody from.
I think if anything, it just shows how creative people can be.
And that's great, and that's the part that I'm the most excited about. But I just feel like even if we had known how popular it was at the time, I hope to think that we wouldn't have made any large decisions based on that, because again, we had such a solid story that we were telling that to undo that
right.
with something that was seemingly popular just didn't seem like the right decision.
Gotcha. Your path is set, and you got your path ready for you.
The best thing to do is just trust the story and tell the story that you're telling. That's the best thing you can do, because in your heart that's the best route. And if you start hearing that people have a different route for it and you start changing, I mean, look at what happened with Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones.
Oh, you watched that?
Well, I just know that
cool.
there was such a
yeah, I remember that was a crazy time.
Backlash. There was a backlash because they had set off in the show telling a very specific story, and then the fans came in
right.
and demanded or responded to certain characters in a certain way, and so they changed the narrative. And once you change the narrative, now you're not on the path that you were when you first set off and setting everything up. And so we knew once we were setting everything up where we wanted to go. Was it set in cement? No, we certainly changed, and we certainly ebbed and flowed with certain things that would be more important or less important in the show. But the large piece of the narrative is what we kept and knew would be important as we got to the last few seasons.
Gotcha. Varian, actually, you know how he Kieran wrote that note for Varian? Was there any I don't know, people kept thinking there was going to be a bunch of stuff with that note. I know Kieran said at one point, it's basically, I love you, son. I'm proud of you. Was that basically just generally it? Because I don't know if there was some, everyone was saying oh, he's the secret about the Brotherhood or something.
Yeah, no, it did. So, and again, I think I pointed this out in a maybe a Tumblr post or even a tweet. But suffice to say that, again, as we're telling this story, we set certain things up. So if we need them in the future, we would have them to go back to. And a lot of what we initially set up that note for was just, I think initially it was a big part of what the Brotherhood, and that his Varian's connection to the Brotherhood and the Dark Kingdom and all this kind of stuff that ultimately we answered in season 2. Like, we knew once we told the audience that there was a Dark Kingdom and that there was this king and then there was the stone and all of these kind of like big mythology questions that we answered visually, that we didn't really need the information from the note.
Okay.
And really what the note became was an icon of Kieran communicating to his son that he was proud of him. You know, that, listen, I know you're running off to find an answer to free me from this stuff. I think Kieran 100% knew that there was no getting out of this thing. He knew that there was nothing that Rapunzel could do because he had or that Varian could do because he had a certain bit of knowledge behind what these rocks were. So I think, you know, ultimately, even though as writers we thought maybe let's have something in the back pocket in case we need it down the road, but ultimately the purpose of the note was for Kieran to be able to tell his son, listen, no matter what happens, I love you and I'm proud of you. And so we chose to take the route of the emotional importance of it rather than the plot stuff, which we had already covered. Right. So it just became more important to communicate, you know, to poor Varian that, listen, I'm proud of you, son. Like, if that's all that he wanted, it was no longer an issue. Like his dad was on his side.
Yeah, you guys put Varian through some rough times on this show. Like, I know you said that he was important for season, you know, for Rapunzel to get out there and stuff. But him being like kind of the villain too, I guess that was also a big thing too, because, you know, she ended up using the power, the rock started showing her way and everything. It was all planned out for Varian.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, there was a lot of mirroring between a father and the child of, you know, am I doing the right thing? So you have Rapunzel, who is struggling with understanding, listen, there's more in me. I'm bigger than you can consider. And, you know, with her father. And then you have Kieran and Varian, who are kind of going through the same little bit of a discussion, because Varian did understand that these rocks were real and these rocks were unstoppable and that maybe he could do something about them. But really it was Rapunzel that could do something about them. So you just had these two sets of relationships that were kind of mirroring each other. But I think Varian took it too far and ultimately had to be at least put in a confinement for a little while because
he just went a little bit crazy, kidnapping the queen and everything about the that guy was. I was like, this man needs to calm down. Like, the whole kingdom's about to be destroyed. Just give him a second. It's not like Kieran's going anywhere. But I mean, I can understand that. You know, his little complication with his father. Him. You know, if I saw that too, I'd be like, come on, please help me, you promised. But, it all turned out the way it did. But, you know, luckily our boy Varian ended up joining the side of light, saw the error of his ways. And plus, he's a kid, you know. We're all bumptious and everything.
We brought him back to the light.
Yeah, we brought him back to the side of light. That was the important thing over there. Oh, Varian. Gonna miss it. That's funny. He brought hot water to Corona while everyone else was, like, chilling with frozen water. I thought that was really funny.